Have you ever misplaced your keys? Forgot a friend's phone number? Had someone's name on the tip of your tongue? Those things happen to all of us. But when Cecile Bazaz was in her 40s, a married mother in the prime of her career, she began to forget more and more. The doctor thought it might be menopause, but it was actually early onset Alzheimer's disease.
It's one of the few days in life that calls for an entire photo album.
Aw, this is my favorite.
The day you marry the love of your life. In this case, the Emory grad redhead, Cecile, who married the Englishman new to America, Alistair.
You like my bouffant hairdo?
Yeah.
They are deeply cherished memories that have fled Cecile Bazaz. The loss of her life, of herself, began when she was just 49 years old, when Alistair and Cecile's only daughter was a sophomore in college.
There had been little signs along the way that something was going on.
Kathleen remembers a trip to a nearby gas station.
Went to a gas station close by our house, and you swipe the card and they ask you to put in your zip code. And when Mom did those functions, and she just looked in the card and she was like, "What's our zip code?" I was like, "Mom, we've lived in the same house for 20 years.
There was the business trip where Cecile couldn't use her laptop because she didn't remember her password. Then she couldn't remember what Alistair and Kathleen liked for breakfast. All the seemingly inconsequential things that make up a life falling away for a once hugely successful banking executive.
She confided in me that she had a conversation with her manager at work, who said that her performance wasn't up to her usual standard.
I remember thinking it was very worrisome that she could not perform pretty basic addition easily.
Neurologist and geneticist Dr. Thomas Wingo was there the first day Alistair brought Cecile to Emory Brain Health. What they had hoped were symptoms of menopause were instead confirmed as Alzheimer's disease.
I grew up really fast.
Kathleen spent her college summers babysitting her mother.
And then eventually got to the points where it's like, I'm feeding her now, or I'm changing her diaper. Never really thought that I would be 20 years old and changing an adult diaper. I thought that was something that I would be doing in my late 20s when I had a kid of my own.
We took the strategy of we're going to beat it. And that's what kept, I think, Cecile going for a long, long time, was we figured we were going to outrun it. Either with, Alan or somebody discovering something that would have beneficial results. We got outrun by it.
Young onset Alzheimer's, meaning onset on or before 60 years old, accounts for less than 1% of all Alzheimer's disease, thought to affect 50 in 100,000 people. In 10% of young onset cases, there is a family history. A grandparent will have it, then their child will have it, then their grandchild, with each generation facing a 50% risk. Dr. Wingo and his team began research to discover the cause for the other 90%, like Cecile, who didn't have a family history, although she did have a gene, ApoE4, a variation on the more common ApoE3, which has been connected to an increased risk of Alzheimer's disease. Wingo and his team looked at the risk of Alzheimer's disease among parents and children in 702 people with young onset from 32 Alzheimer's disease research centers across the country. They compared them to over 5,000 people with late onset Alzheimer's.
It really surprised us.
What surprised Wingo was that among the 702 people with young onset, only between 4 and 8% had a parent with young onset Alzheimer's disease. But when they looked at siblings of those patients, almost 22% of them had young onset as well. How is it possible in families with healthy parents that more children wind up with it?
We were surprised to find that the data suggested that parents who were fine had carried one copy of a defective gene, but and they passed it along to a child that inherited 2 copies of this defective gene.
Wingo's autosomal recessive hypothesis means each parent would have a defective copy or copies of a family of genes. That defective copy from each parent creates young onset in their children who inherit both copies. It's like a bad luck lottery for two parents to have copies of this defective gene.
These mutations would have to be very rare in the general population, say like 1% frequency, certainly less than 5% frequency.
The human body has 20,500 genes. Wingo and his team don't know the precise ones involved, but have narrowed the search considerably.
Our sequencing to date suggests genes that are involved in cholesterol metabolism.
If the specific gene or genes could be identified, it would point to new biological processes that could be treated. Hope for treatment.
I'm in love. I'm a believer. I couldn't leave her if I tried.
Here you go, sweetheart. There you go. What do you fancy your lunch today?
Every day, Alistair visits and feeds Cecile at the Mann house, where she now lives.
I've got to believe there's somebody in there. And that's why I don't think one should ever give up on them.
As much as it's caused so much hurt in our family, I think it's brought us closer. I'm just so amazed and so proud of the man that he is.
I play music for you, love.
They play her favorite music, which sometimes elicits a moving foot or gesture.
You love this type of music, don't you, sweetie? I live by one standard, was what would she have done for me?
For Kathleen, now 29, the future is sometimes fraught with worry. She has not been tested to see if she too has the risk copy of ApoE4, like her mother.
It's something that comes through my mind probably once every couple days when I forget something that I should, know right off the top of my head.
And that's when she thinks of her father, his bottomless loyalty and love that he pledged all those years ago, for better or for worse.
I hope to choose a partner in life that has seen this journey and knows this journey that we've been on and is willing to go that extra mile if that journey comes along again.
It's predicted 7 million Americans will have Alzheimer's by 2025, 6 years from now, a 35% increase, an impending tsunami. While young onset Alzheimer's is only a fraction of this number, each breakthrough brings scientists another step closer to cracking the code on a disease that exacts an unrelenting price.
We desperately need not only individuals, but companies and governments to get behind this, because I can see a time where almost every human being in the United States, at least, and probably the United Kingdom too, will be connected to somebody with this situation. It'll be a brother, it'll be an uncle, it could be a wife. There's no way you're not going to be able to say, I'm one step away from somebody who's got it. It's a family disease, it's not an individual's disease.